Have you ever wished you could peek into the future? What if I told you that nearly 2,600 years ago, one man was given the key to understanding the entire course of world history, from ancient times right up to our modern era? This isn't just a story, it's one of the most enigmatic and precise prophecies ever recorded. Today, we're going to dive deep into the dream of the prophet Daniel, or more precisely, the king's dream that Daniel was called to interpret. And trust me, the insights from this interpretation will make you see the world we live in through a completely new lens. Picture this: the mighty king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. He has a dream that troubles him so profoundly, he loses all peace of mind. But here's the twist: he can't remember the dream itself. He summons his wise men, magicians, and soothsayers, presenting them with an impossible task. Not just to interpret the dream, but first to reveal what he had dreamed. Naturally, no one can fulfill such a demand, and the enraged king orders all his wise men to be executed, and that's where a young Jewish captive named Daniel steps into the spotlight. So, let's go back now to the throne room. The situation is incredibly tense. All the wise men of Babylon have failed. The king is enraged, and the execution order has already been given. It seems all hope is lost, but Daniel doesn't panic. Instead of consulting the stars or chanting spells, he does something entirely different. He requests a reprieve, and along with his friends, he turns to God in prayer. He prays for the mystery to be revealed, hoping to save not only his own life but the lives of all the wise men. And that very night, a vision is granted to him. The mystery is unveiled. Imagine the scene. A young captive stands before the most powerful ruler in the world. The king gazes at him, a flicker of desperate hope mixed with anger and suspicion in his eyes. So what does Daniel say? He doesn't boast of his own intelligence. He utters the key words: "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or astrologer can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." With these words, he immediately establishes the source of his information. This is no guess of his own. It's a direct message from above. And now, in the hushed silence of the throne room, Daniel begins to describe the very dream the king had seen, yet couldn't recall. "You, O king, saw," Daniel began, his voice entirely devoid of doubt, "a magnificent, towering statue." Can you imagine Nebuchadnezzar's heart stopping cold at that moment? He recognized his very own dream. Daniel continued, detailing aspects only someone with divine revelation could possibly know. "This statue was enormous, standing before you with an extraordinary, almost blinding brilliance. Its appearance was truly terrifying. Try to paint this picture in your mind's eye. This was no mere work of art. It was something overwhelming, almost sentient, a human figure, yet pieced together from diverse, utterly incompatible materials. It shone, yes, but its radiance wasn't benevolent. It was cold, imperious, even sinister. Its sheer brilliance was blinding, and its colossal size instilled an undeniable dread. The very sight of this colossus inspired a primal, unshakable terror. And Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king, accustomed to instilling fear in others, suddenly felt utterly small and helpless before this nocturnal apparition. Daniel didn't merely guess. He perfectly captured the very atmosphere of the dream, the precise sense of unease that had robbed the king of his peace. This gigantic, gleaming, and terrifying figure was the undeniable key to the entire mystery. Daniel presses on, his words bringing the vision to life for the king. This colossal statue, Daniel declares, had a head of pure gold. Gold, the most precious and noble of metals, a universal symbol of supreme authority, immense wealth, and divine glory. In the ancient world, nothing proclaimed dominance and superiority quite like pure gold. And now, the moment of truth arrives, the very core of Daniel's interpretation. Daniel looks directly into Nebuchadnezzar's eyes and delivers words that simultaneously exalt the king and subtly humble him. He declares, "You, O king, king of kings, you are that head of gold." It was a direct and unambiguous pronouncement. The Babylonian Empire itself, with its untold riches, its legendary hanging gardens, its formidable army, and the absolute power wielded by Nebuchadnezzar, was indeed that shining pinnacle of the statue. It stood as the first, the most glorious, truly the golden standard, against which all subsequent world powers would be measured. But Daniel immediately adds a crucial caveat. This immense power was not achieved by the king's own might, but bestowed upon him by the God of heaven. This was the opening volley in a grand revelation, foretelling a succession of world-changing eras. But the glory of Babylon, brilliant as pure gold, was not destined to last forever. And here, the prophecy takes a dramatic turn. Daniel shifts his focus to the next part of the colossal statue, its chest and arms crafted from silver. Imagine the king's disappointment, perhaps even his anger at this revelation. Only moments before he had been hailed as the golden head, the pinnacle of all power. Now he was being told his reign was not the ultimate conclusion of history. Silver, of course, is also a precious and powerful metal, symbolizing wealth and might. Yet in any hierarchy of value, it invariably ranks second only to gold. And Daniel made this explicitly clear. After you, another kingdom will arise, one inferior to yours. This was the first cold dose of reality. His empire, which seemed invincible and eternal, had its limits. A new power would succeed it, great in its own right, but lacking the absolute golden splendor of Babylon. This was a prophecy of an inevitable shift in power, a clear sign that the wheel of history had already begun its inexorable turn. The two silver arms symbolically hinted at the dual nature of this new empire to come. As we move further down the statue, the materials become less precious, yet simultaneously more durable and ubiquitous. Daniel describes the next section of the colossal figure to the king, its belly and its thighs of bronze. Bronze, in ancient times, it was the metal of warriors. From this alloy of copper, armor, shields, and swords were forged. Bronze shines with a cold, aggressive luster, distinct from the warm glow of gold or the refined gleam of silver. It is a metal synonymous with conquest and vast expansion. Daniel's interpretation perfectly aligns with this imagery. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, which will rule over the whole earth. Note the sheer scale described. While the second kingdom was considered inferior to Babylon, the third is said to extend its dominion far more broadly. It would encompass the entire known world of its time. This was a prophecy of a new era, one of swift conquests and unprecedented global dominance. Power would no longer be measured solely by treasures, as was the case with Babylon, but by the vast territories that this new Bronze Empire could conquer. History was poised for the emergence of a power whose armies, like unstoppable bronze legions, would sweep across the globe. Our focus now shifts to the most formidable and powerful part of this statue. Daniel describes the idol's legs, and with them, all glimmer of precious metals disappears. The scripture declares, "The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron." Iron. This is no noble metal. It lacks the luster of gold. Its worth lies not in beauty, but in its unyielding strength. Iron is the very metal of war in its most brutal form. It is a substance that breaks, crushes, and subjugates everything in its path. And Daniel himself uses such stark language to describe the very essence of this future empire. For just as iron shatters and crushes everything, so this kingdom, like all conquering iron, will shatter and grind all into submission. This is the description of an absolute war machine, a kingdom that will know no compromise. Its power will be based not on wealth or culture, but on brute force. It will rule with an iron fist, establishing its order through conquest and suppression. This is a prophecy of the most ruthless and enduring of all human empires, whose legacy, like the resilience of iron, will be felt for centuries. And now, friends, we arrive at the most crucial part, one that directly impacts our present era. We've reached the very base of the statue, its feet. And here, the prophecy presents its greatest surprise. Daniel tells the king, "Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, So this will be a divided kingdom. Ponder this image carefully. The feet, the foundation of this colossal statue, are not made of a single solid material, but a mixture. Iron, a symbol of indestructible power, dictatorship, and military might, and clay, a fragile, brittle material, symbolizing weakness, democracy, and the common people. This image perfectly describes the world after the fall of the Great Iron Empire. It's an era where no single dominant superpower exists, but instead a multitude of nations. Some are strong, others weak. Some attempt to rule by force, while others rely on the will of the people. It's a world of constant alliances and conflicts, where strength and fragility exist side by side. This is precisely the political reality the world has inhabited for many centuries. Daniel doesn't just state the fact of division, he delves into the specifics, offering an astonishingly accurate depiction of political life in this final era. He says, "And as the toes were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle." Isn't that a brilliant description of our world? Just look at modern nations and alliances. Some possess immense military and economic power, like iron. Others are weak and vulnerable, like clay. Their fates often dictated by more powerful players. International alliances might appear robust, yet beneath the surface, there are always frictions and disagreements that make them fragile. Strength and weakness are constantly intertwined. A mighty nation can suddenly face an internal crisis, while a smaller people might demonstrate incredible resilience. This perpetual tension between iron and clay is the defining characteristic of the world that emerged from the ashes of the last great empire, and we witness it every single day. But the prophecy delves even further, explaining why this mixture of iron and clay will never truly unite. Daniel states, "And just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, so will they mingle with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. They will mingle with one another in marriage." This phrase directly points to the historical attempts to unite fragmented nations through dynastic marriages, political unions, and various alliances. Think of European history. For centuries, kings and emperors strategically married off their children to forge alliances and consolidate empires. Subsequent attempts at unity involved political and economic blocs. But what was the outcome? These initiatives typically led to temporary truces, which were invariably followed by new wars and conflicts. The prophecy unequivocally asserts that all such attempts are ultimately doomed to fail. The fundamental differences between peoples, cultures, and systems of governance, the very iron and clay divide, are simply too profound to ever forge them into a strong, monolithic entity. They may coexist side by side, but they will never truly coalesce into a single unified whole. This is a fundamental principle that has remained true throughout this entire historical epoch. And now, as Daniel describes the final divided phase of human authority, the dream reaches its dramatic climax. Something utterly unexpected occurs. You watched as a stone was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay, shattering them. Pause and picture this scene. No human hand hurls this stone. No army launches it from a catapult. It breaks away from the mountain by itself, without human hands. This is a crucial detail. It signifies that the event about to unfold will be divine in nature, not human. This is a supernatural intervention in the course of history. Now observe the target. The stone doesn't strike the golden head or the silver chest. It targets the very foundation, the fragile feet of iron and clay. It strikes at the very era of divided kingdoms in which we find ourselves today. This is a decisive blow to the entire system of human governance, in its final, most vulnerable stage. The impact of this mysterious stone was more than just destructive. It was total and instantaneous. Daniel describes it. Then all of them were broken in pieces together. The iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. Think about that. The blow struck the feet, yet the entire statue disintegrated. This means the stone doesn't merely dismantle the current world order. It wipes out the entire legacy of human empires, every system of power humanity has ever built, right from Babylon itself. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, all these symbols of human might and arrogance are instantly reduced to dust. This is the total and definitive erasure of all human governance. Nothing remained. Not a single piece of that colossal, fearsome structure survived. This isn't a reform. It's not just a change from one power to another. This is the absolute, ultimate end of the entire system the statue represented. What happens after this utter annihilation? Where does all that imperial dust go? Daniel offers a powerful and definitive answer. The wind swept them away, and not a trace of them remained. This image is incredibly powerful. The wind swept them away. This signifies that of all the history of human kingdoms, their wars, their laws, their achievements and their cruelties, not even a memory will remain. They will simply vanish, as if they had never existed. Picture a summer threshing floor where grain is separated. The light chaff and dust rise into the air, then are effortlessly scattered by the wind, leaving no trace. That is precisely the fate of the entire system the statue represented. This isn't just a defeat, it's total oblivion. The prophecy declares that a moment will come when everything humanity has built over thousands of years in its attempts to govern itself, from ancient Babylon right up to our modern era, will be so thoroughly erased from the face of the earth that no trace of it will remain. This marks the definitive end of human rule. But the stone that delivered this crushing blow didn't vanish. Its mission wasn't solely about destruction. Daniel concludes the dream's description with its most astonishing image. And the stone that shattered the idol became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Just picture the contrast. A colossal, glittering, man-made statue, a symbol of human pride and power, dissolves into nothing, into dust swept away by the wind. But the stone, not fashioned by human hands coming from outside, doesn't just take its place. It grows to an unbelievable size. It becomes a mountain. In ancient symbolism, a mountain represents a kingdom, eternal and unshakable. And this mountain kingdom doesn't just exist somewhere in isolation. It expands to fill the entire expanse. This is the image of a new world order that supplants all human empires and completely and without exception takes possession of the entire earth. Here, the description of the dream concludes, leaving the king and us with the paramount question, what does it all mean? Now, for the crucial part, the interpretation. As Daniel already explained, the golden head symbolized the Babylonian Empire. But what came next? All we need to do is open a history book. The prophecy was fulfilled with astonishing accuracy. In 539 BCE, Babylon fell. This mighty empire was conquered almost without a fight. And who took its place? The combined kingdom of the Medes and Persians, led by King Cyrus, what we know as the Medo-Persian Empire. Recall the image from the dream, the chest and arms of silver. Those two arms, they represent two distinct peoples, the Medes and Persians, united into one powerful kingdom, and just as predicted, silver became the primary metal of their economy. They even introduced a widespread silver monetary system. While their empire was undeniably vast, historians note that it lacked the same sheer splendor and centralized power as Babylon, much like silver, simply doesn't gleam with the same intensity as gold. The first phase of this prophecy was fulfilled with absolute precision. The wheel of history had turned, and silver had now replaced gold. But moving forward on our timeline, the Medo-Persian Empire appeared invincible, yet prophecy had already foretold its demise. It was foretold that a bronze kingdom would succeed the silver one, an empire destined to rule over the whole earth. And once again, history confirmed every word. The world stage saw the rise of a young, brilliant commander, Alexander the Great. His Greek or Hellenistic empire swept across the globe like a lightning bolt. Greek warriors, clad in bronze, a copper alloy, armor and helmets crushed the Persian forces. In an astonishingly short span of time, Alexander conquered virtually the entire known world, stretching from Greece to India. His empire became the first truly global power. Exactly as prophesied, it would rule over the whole earth. This Bronze Age, an era defined by rapid sword-like expansion and the spread of Hellenistic culture, supplanted the Silver Age, and Daniel's prophecy, once again, demonstrated its incredible precision. Yet even Alexander the Great's Bronze Kingdom was not destined to last forever. After his death, the empire rapidly fragmented, weakened, and was eventually absorbed by the most formidable new power in the ancient world. Enter the Roman Empire. Recall the dream's description: the legs of iron that break in pieces and crush all things. No other description could fit Rome more perfectly. Roman legions, armed with iron swords and spears, ruled with iron discipline. They didn't merely conquer, they crushed, wiping entire peoples off the map, and established their own order, the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, founded on absolute military might. The Roman Empire became synonymous with invincible power and ruthless rule. It endured longer than any previous empire, leaving behind a legacy of laws, roads, and languages whose influence is still felt today. The Iron Kingdom, just as foretold, succeeded the Bronze one and perfectly fulfilled its historical role. And what became of Rome? What fate befell that mighty Iron Empire? History offers a clear answer. It wasn't simply conquered by a single new superpower. Instead, the Roman Empire crumbled from within, and under constant pressure from barbarian tribes, it splintered into countless separate kingdoms. It was precisely on its former territory that the nations we now know as the countries of Europe emerged: Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Great Britain, and many others. This brings us full circle back to the prophecy of the feet of iron and clay, a divided kingdom. It's a perfect description of the post-imperial world. The unified iron power vanished, replaced by a mosaic of strong and weak nations. These nations inherited a portion of Rome's legacy, the iron of its laws and military organization, but they blended it with their own unique cultures and vulnerabilities, their clay. From the fall of Rome right up to the present day, the world has continued to live in this very era, the era of divided kingdoms. Let's once again put this prophecy to the test. It was foretold that these divided kingdoms would mingle with the seed of men, but not cleave one to another. The entire history of Europe following the fall of Rome can be precisely described by this very statement. Endless attempts at unification, through dynastic marriages where princesses were wed to cement alliances, through wars waged by ambitious rulers like Charlemagne, Napoleon, or Hitler, all striving to reforge a single unified empire. Later still, we saw the formation of political and economic unions such as the European Union. But what has been the outcome? None of these endeavours ever succeeded in creating a lasting monolithic empire akin to Rome. There were always internal contradictions, cultural differences, national interests, that very clay, preventing the iron from truly uniting. This prophecy, delivered 1,000 years before these events, precisely captured the central political drama of both European and global history. This prophecy, made nearly 2,600 years ago, is astonishing in its precision. Let's quickly recap. The head of gold, Babylon, check. The chest of silver, Medo-Persia, check. The belly of bronze, Greece under Alexander the Great, check. The legs of iron, the Roman Empire, check. And finally, the feet of iron and clay, representing the divided nations of Europe and the world after Rome's fall. That too holds true. Each empire succeeded the last, precisely in the order depicted in the dream. Each metal accurately described the nature and key characteristics of its respective kingdom. This isn't some vague prophecy open to endless interpretation. Instead, it's a clear, consistent, and historically verifiable roadmap of world history. And if the first 5 segments of this prophecy have come to pass with astonishing accuracy, a logical and perhaps unsettling question arises. What about the final part? What about the stone that shatters everything? Now let's put all the pieces of the puzzle together, because what you're about to hear might genuinely shock you. The dream the king had, interpreted by Daniel, isn't just a fascinating story about ancient empires, it's a precise timeline of human political power. Think about it. Babylon fell, Medo-Persia fell, Greece fell, mighty Rome collapsed and fractured. Everything Daniel predicted came true with astonishing accuracy. And we, my friends, are living in the feet era, a time marked by divided nations, constantly striving for unity, yet plagued by fragile alliances and ongoing conflicts. But here's the most crucial twist: the stone. The prophecy states that the next superpower won't be a human empire at all. The stone, cut out without human hands, symbolizes something divine, something not made by man. This represents God's kingdom, which, the prophecy says, will one day crush all human systems of governance and establish an eternal order. So this ancient dream doesn't just describe the past, it points directly to the future, asserting that the history of human empires has a definitive end. And that end isn't the rise of another, even more powerful human authority, but something entirely different. So, what are we left with? An ancient prophecy that described the rise and fall of four of history's greatest empires with incredible accuracy, and even foretold the global political landscape that has persisted for centuries. That's quite thought-provoking, isn't it? Thanks for sticking with us until the end. If this topic resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive into ancient mysteries. What do you think the feet of iron and clay symbolize in our modern era? What contemporary alliances or conflicts come to mind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you.